Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampadhrita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirsha Namamaha. Namaste and welcome to the third talk in the series on the subject Mind Management Techniques, wherein I hope to take you through a process of exploring what we would like to now define as consciousness mind-body matrix, CMB matrix. So I will take you through briefly through some of the points or subjects we had discussed in the first two talks, and give you an idea how they are leading on to the main subject of our the series of talks. We had started with the world that we perceive outside us, the world seen through our five senses. We try to understand what perception is or knowledge is, and in that we discussed that behind the five senses embodied in the body, we have the inner organ, the antakarana, made of the chitta, manas, buddhi, and ahamkara. The chitta is the mind stuff in which all thought waves form, so to say, when perceptions or signals or impressions from the outside enter into us. The mind or the manas are the wavelets or the ripples in that chitta. The power of discrimination, where we try to understand or recognize what is that, what we are perceiving, is the buddhi. And the I sense is when we say, I know something. These four together form the antakarana. We explained or discussed various models, so to say, through which we can get a framework of what we are within us. We had explored the idea of how the body and the mind and the ego are related to the pure consciousness, using the analogy of a pot full of water kept out in the sun, in which the body is the pot, or the pot is the body, the water is equivalent to the mind and the intellect. The I sense is the reflection of the real sun which is up in the sky. That gives us an idea of the relationship with the body, mind, ego, and the Supreme Self in that model. Consciousness, mind, body. We also explored another analogy that's used in the scriptures, where the chariot with its rider are used to explain the interrelationship right from the external world to the Jivatman, in which the five horses are represented by the five senses are represented by the five horses. The chariot is represented body. The chariot represents the body. The reins represent the mind. The charioteer who is controlling the horses with the help of the reins is the intellect, and the rider is the Jivatman, or the individual self, showing that the horses or the senses are going forward towards their sense objects. They are yoked to the body and drag the body around, trying to enjoy the various enjoyments through the senses. And if the intellect, the charioteer, is wide awake and alert and strong and holds the reins tight then he can control the horses and take them to the desired destination. But if the charioteer is not alert, then the horses are having a field day and the rider is at their mercy. So that was another example how we try to understand the interrelationship between the external world, the senses, the body, the mind, the intellect, and the Jivatman. We'll be exploring a couple of models and try to see which we will use to understand this inner interrelationship of the body, the mind, the Jivatman, and the Supreme Self, the Paramatman. So slowly we are moving from the external world through the body of the and the senses to the mental plane, inner world, examining how it is constituted within us, and then linking it to the Supreme Self or the pure consciousness that is within us. We also explored this idea that there are three planes of consciousness, or which the space we call outside is called the Maha Akasha, in which all physical things are perceived. Finer than this is the Chit Akasha, or the mental space, in which the contents are thoughts and ideas, and the mind is the receiver and transmitter of those ideas. And then behind that, even finer than that, is the Chid Akasha, or the plane of consciousness, which is the permanent entity. The mental and the physical world vibrate forth from the consciousness and it merges back into consciousness. At the time of creation, it vibrates forth or is projected outwards, and at the time of dissolution, it merges into itself. And that's how the cycle of projection or Srishti, Sthiti, Vinasha, projection, sustenance, and dissolution takes place. We also explored towards the end of the last talk another model in which we said if we could look at this cosmic drama in the form or the perception in the form of a projector in a cinema hall. Things that we know, we'll use those examples. So in a cinema hall, you'll see in the old cinema hall before the movie starts, everyone is waiting to see something to happen on the screen, and then the projector is switched on. And you see a beam of light shining straight onto the screen. You might turn around and you can see the lamp of the. Right now the film is not rolling through and you don't see anything. If you ask somebody, what do you see on the screen? They say nothing. They don't say, there's pure light there. And then the movie reel starts moving. And you see these numbers, 9, 8, 7, 6, and you remember all those things. So your attention gets focused on those shadows, not on the light. The light is the real thing which illumines. Without it, you can run the movie, nothing will appear. Yet our attention is on the shadows, things, limited things, because the mind is constituted to see forms and shapes. It doesn't see the thing that illumines it. We have to keep that in mind. Our goal is to become aware of that light itself and not the shadows that create the movie, so to say. So in this analogy, we have this light of consciousness and this movie reel, which if you take in a hand, is just made of single little pictures, one after the other. But when they move in a smooth way and the projector gives flashes through each, it creates a sensation of motion. That's why they call them motion pictures. Really it's not moving, but movement is perceived through our senses, through our eyes. And on the screen you see the moving, rolling on. You get involved with the movie, you have drama or tragedy or comedy, you have heroes and villains, and after a few minutes you have totally forgotten about the projector at the back, you have totally forgotten about the movie reel, you are just focused on the action on the movie. And you become personally involved in that. And the movie runs on, you see the drama. Now, one of the two things I would like to mention. We have to keep our attention on the light itself. That's what we're trying to slowly direct our attention to the light of consciousness in us. That is an example of a old movie system where the screen is separate, the movie film is separate, and the projector is separate. But in the modern age, we don't have those type of ways of watching the movie. Things have changed. We don't have these three things. You have this TV. You're still watching the movie in the TV. There are no three separate things now anymore. The screen is there, but it's a digital screen. Instead of the movie reel, you get a USB or DVD in which the information is encoded, not anymore in the form of pictures, but digital signals, zeros and ones, information is there. And instead of the light, we have electricity. Light is another form of energy, electricity is another form of energy, but it's all built in one system. So, in the old idea, you would say God or consciousness is separate from the mind, is separate from the screen. Here we see it is within the system, which is a more developed idea. So the energy from within, which is called Shakti, the immanent energy things. God is not some being outside the universe and us who has created this whole things and set it in motion, but He is very much present in everything within us. That power which is behind every thought, word and deed, every action, at a cosmic level is called the Divine Mother, Kali, Durga, Shakti. And it is through her power that everything happens. That's a profound idea and realization which Ramakrishna experienced. And he said that that which is this Shakti is another aspect of the same Brahman. They are two sides of the same coin. But we as created beings are in the jurisdiction of the Shakti. We are her created things, so to say, her children or her playmates. And later on, we'll understand that it is only through her grace, when she wills, that she can reveal herself in her divine form. And if she does not do that, then we continue to play the roles that we are playing. So, going back to this TV analogy. So we have the electricity, which is the source of energy. We have the information of the movie that is preserved or stored in a USB or DVD in form of digital signals. And somehow, through that algorithm or the software that is there, that information is transformed into a movie, pictures and sounds. And again we see. In the world that we live in, how do we relate this analogy to our everyday thing? Where is that screen? Where is that movie screen reel? And where is that light? These models represent something, so we should be able to relate to that. So this world, this three-dimensional world in X, Y, Z planes, space, and the dimension of time where things are changing, and there's a connection between cause and effect. This is the canvas. Try to visualize that the canvas is not a flat screen anymore. It's a three-dimensional space with time and cause and effect. In Sanskrit, it's called Desh, Kala, Nimitya. Space, time, and causation. That is the canvas on which this movie of this world is being projected. So this is the physical world, canvas, so to say. Behind this, in the subtle world, the mental space, is where the information or the movie story is stored. And behind that, even finer than that, is the consciousness which illumines these, or which projects through these images and this world of names and forms, right from an atom to a galaxy and a universe, is projected. And we are part of it. So it's a very interesting way of perceiving this world, being mindful that what we see on the physical screen, this world of the physical, at the physical level, is only a projection of something that is in the mental level, and the illuminator, the consciousness that is there, the light comes from deep within us. It's not like a projector mind in something outside. It's all internalized now. So if we have this model of understanding the multidimensional world that we are all familiar with, and bring into our everyday understanding the greater degree of permanency of these subtler worlds. The physical world is constantly changing and disappearing. The mental world is also there, but that is more enduring. And the level of consciousness that is there, that is the permanent entity on which all this is happening. And that's how we are constituted. So if you look at that pot, water, reflection and the sun model, this physical world and our body is this of the pot. The mind and intellect is the water, so to say, in which many reflections are formed. So it's not just one pot of water out there. You put 1,000 pots of water in the sun, you get 1,000 reflections. But the sun is always one. You may break all the 1,000 pots. All the reflections dry away. But nothing happens to the sun in the sky. Our idea is to disassociate ourselves with this reflection, with this body-mind, and revert our identity to the real sun in the sky. Because if we don't do that, then this identification with the body-mind complex is what creates all problem for us. It's not real. The reflected sun is not real. It just appears when the light from the sun hits and there's a junction with the water, and somehow a round, circular, shining image appears, which we say, that's a sun there. It's only a reflection of the sun. The ego that is in us is only a reflection of the cosmic consciousness. It is there so long the water is there. If all the water evaporates out of it, then the reflection disappears. That I sense, that aham bhava, is that reflected sun. And it says, I am this water, and associates itself with the changes of the water also. So in your mind, serious waves appear and disappear. Some waves are good, happy, some are not so happy. Those waves which make you feel happy, they effectively remove the barrier to that bliss that's inside us. And we think, we feel that the happiness from within, but in our ignorance we attribute it to something outside. So you see a beautiful sunrise or sunset of a flower and you said, that's a beautiful flower. Actually the beauty is not in the flower or in the sun. But the flower and the sun created a particular thought wave in your mind, and the nature of that particular wave was that for an instant it removed the barrier to the manifestation or the expression of that joy that's the nature of the Atman. And we felt that happiness, but we didn't realize that that happiness is coming from within. It's coming from outside. From that object, and therefore we want to have that experience again and again and again. Sometimes that particular object is not there, but the memory of it is there. Okay, so those impressions were kept stored in the subconscious, and afterwards you remember that particular event, and as soon as that wave rises to your conscious mind, it does the same thing again. It removes that barrier, that obstruction to the inner joy, inner bliss, and you feel very happy just by remembering that thing or particular experience. What is important to understand here is that bliss that we are experiencing is not coming from outside things. It is coming from within. The outside experience serves the purpose of either unblocking or blocking. So when we have a painful experience, that's something that makes you sad or unhappy or miserable, we understand it that such a wave clouds that mind or disturbs and blocks it even more. So they say a nice thing about it. When we have come to this understanding, then we say, look, it's all happening inside me, and therefore I can, through proper training and discipline and internal observation, empower myself to whether to let those type of waves appear and disappear and make me happy or make me unhappy, or I can have that type of control that I will not let those things make me swing in this pendulum of happiness and unhappiness. And that's what mind management techniques would really aim or help us to do. That subjectively we can take control of ourselves, and no matter what others say or what outside things are happening, they will not affect us. That is freedom, when the whole world cannot touch us and we are established in our unshakable nature. So, in this example, we see that outside things were known, inside some knowledge is acquired, and further inside is the Nava, the source of that knowledge. Jnanam, Jnayam, Jnata. Jnayam means that which is known. Jnanam, that which is knowledge. Jnata, that which is the Nava. We think that we are the Nava, and there is some knowledge in our mind, and things outside are known. We take one step back inwards and begin to see that our thoughts are itself known. We are observing those things as separate from us. These are just some waves and changes that are happening in the mind. We don't say, I am happy or unhappy. We discriminate and say, I can see a wave that brings out happiness in me. I see a wave that obstructs the inner bliss. And we say, these waves are coming and going. They are not permanent. I'm not going to identify myself with that change and say I am happy or I am unhappy. I'm an observer of this internal change of mind. None of them are permanent. That is stepping one step back into ourselves, and that is where this witness nature, observer thing comes in. And when we do this power meditation, you'll understand why we try to do this meditation, to increase that power of that internal observation, the reflective mind, not the active mind. One part is perceiving, the other one is watching the process of perception. And ultimately we want to even go further into ourselves, where we say the pure consciousness in us is the real Nava. And this whole body, mind and ego is the known. And then only we abide in our true knowledge of ourselves. Now, can that consciousness also become known? So when we say, I want to know God in the way I'm knowing things outside, is it possible for the Nava to be known? So, for something to be known, it has to be objectified first. So the question comes, can the subject be objectified? Can God be known in the sense that I'm seeing him outside me or something other than me? So the answer is no. And in one of the Upanishads, the question starts, that student goes to the teacher and asks this question, Kasminnu bhagavo vijñāte sarvam idam vijñātam iti. What is that by knowing which everything known? Or this another one, vijñātaram arekkena vijaniyat. How do I know the knower itself? Well, in this understanding, you can only know something if you can objectify it. It has taken a form, because knowledge means there's a change, a wave, a vritti in the chitta. And you have been able to define that form, relate it to a name, index it and store it in your in the hard disk of your knowledge system, and then you say, that thing is known to me. And you can add more attributes and qualities to it, and you say, I know more and more about things. So Sri Ramakrishna gives a beautiful example, says in a beautiful way, to know many things is ignorance. To know the one thing is true knowledge. Compared to his definition, in our world, we call a person very knowledgeable if he has so much information about so many subjects and what's happening around the world and various aspects of nature. We study them through physics and chemistry and biology, and through so many disciplines. We acquire so much information, we process them, and we say so-and-so is very, very knowledgeable. In the spiritual frame, you say he's so much ignorant because he doesn't know that one out of which all these names and forms come. Names and forms appear and disappear, but there is something which is unchanging, which is permanent, which is the substratum, which is of the nature of pure light, pure bliss, pure knowledge, which is eternal, which is immortal, and that is what we really are. Ignorance is when we have forgotten that nature and we have become identified with this changing world of names and forms, right, in the physical plane, in the mental plane, having a sense of ego and identity, and this is what we are. We think when the body is born, we are born. When the body grows old, we are becoming old. When the body is not healthy, we say we are not healthy. When the body dies, we say we die. That is because of our identification with this body. Sometimes it is identified with the mind. And as those waves change in the mind, when a happy wave comes, we say, I am happy. When it doesn't, something opposite comes and blocks the happiness from within us, we say we are unhappy. When we can make sense of something that is our experience, we say, I know, because I had this previous experience, and when this new one came, I meshed it and it tallied, and immediately I put a label to it, I know this person. And if a new person comes in, a new experience comes, and which has not stored in your reference system, then you scratch your head and say, I don't know. Or when it's all muddled up, then you're confused. When it's all nicely organized, interlinked, then you say, I understand. What is happening is changes are happening in the mind. But because of our identification with the mind, we say we are this. This reflected sun is so much entangled with this body-mind complex, so to say. This is the state of ignorance. But behind that is the real sun. And that has nothing to do with this body, or the water, or the reflected sun. You may break 1,000 pots, and the water might leak out, all the reflected suns disappear. It does not make any difference to the sun in the sky. That is so much glorious, so much powerful, so much energy and light and heat is there, that reflection is only a semblance of it. Such is our ego. So, how do we now disidentify ourselves from this body-mind complex and this false association with this body-mind complex, and connect ourselves to our true self? So when the sages try to give this message across to us, for example, the beautiful Nirvana Shatakam of Acharya Shankara, he says, Mano buddhi ahankara chittani naham. The mind, the buddhi, the chitta and ahankara, the internal organs, I am none of this. And he goes again and again through 8 stanzas. In each one of them he says, Chidananda Rupo, Shivoham, Shivoham. So one side he tries to negate this identification with this body-mind complex. On the other side he tries to assert or affirm the real nature that I am Chit, means pure consciousness, I am Ananda, I am full of bliss, and I am Shivoham, Shivoham, I am the auspicious one. All goodness, beauty, purity in everything, that is the nature of the Atman. We have shifted our locus from our real nature and have become entangled with this transitory body-mind complex, and this is what is called being embodied, being a Jivatman. Did the real sun come to the earth? No, it did not. Did the Paramatman ever become born as a Jivatman? Really not. Apparently it feels. So it's all in ignorance. That's why in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna is talking about the sin that might occur to him if he kills all these people, then one of the first things Krishna teaches him that the Atman is never born, it never dies. Why do you make a big deal about it? But that is the Advaita knowledge, and maybe too high for many people. Intellectually, conceptually they might understand it, but it's not an experience. Religion or spirituality is about having that experience for oneself. So in that process, we first acquire some knowledge through this type of discussions and listening and reading and contemplation. This is that's called Shravan. This Manan is when I dwell and think deeply about what is the essence of all those teachings. And Nididhyasan is when, through the practice of japa and meditation, I try to have that experience of ourselves. So, if we became very much conscious that, focused that, okay, up to a certain extent, we can have some conceptual idea of what we are, inside, internally, at a mind level, as a jiva, and what is the Supreme Soul or Paramatman. That might make us philosophers, pandits, intellectual people, and we can have all this intellectual gymnastics about trying to express this in so many ways. But there's no substitute to having the experience of it. One can talk about honey in so many ways, its color, its texture, its viscosity, and where it comes from, so many flowers that have nectar from so many flowers, but and write a big book about honey, but it's totally different from taking a drop of honey on your tongue and you have the actual experience of it. So when we talk about this body-mind complex and the Jivatman and the Paramatman and the consciousness and everything, this is philosophy. And if we become just happy with this, then we'll never taste the honey of self-realization. Others will say, we can understand so much with our mind, and that much only because this mind is not really trained for that. But I have got a conviction that behind that, there is the Supreme Self-Consciousness, which is not just a normal, inert, lifeless light. It's a life of consciousness. That means it is alive. It responds to us. It's a living thing. And whatever we call life is only a small expression of that infinite life of that being. So it's very, very sensitive. You can pray to it. You can talk to it. As they say, God can hear even the anklet on the feet of an ant. Okay, so sensitive and so living it is. And it is that life force that percolates through everything and through which we think we are alive. We are alive and living and conscious. Sri Ramakrishna gives another example. Again he says, look, there's this pot of water on the stove or on the fireplace, and the mother is making some vegetable soups. She has put together some mixed vegetables of carrots and peas into the water, and after some time the water begins to boil, and little child goes and looks into the pot and sees all these peas and carrots are popping up and down and thinks they are all alive because they are moving. But he doesn't understand that they're moving up and down because the flame is below there, the fire is there. And the moment you switch off the stove, all of them will settle down, there won't be any movement. Likewise, the senses that we have in our body, what we call the mind, mental activity, the physical movement of the body, all these are moving, so to say, because of that fire of consciousness that is inside us. And when that is withdrawn and switched off, then you see everything is outside there, but you don't perceive them. You're not alive. You say, they're gone. Or even if it happens when you are in sleep or deep sleep, the world is around there, but somehow the consciousness has withdrawn and we don't perceive them anything. So the most important factor is that consciousness. It is because of that all perception and everything happens. And when it retreats or withdraws, all the fun, everything, drama stops. How do we get acquainted with that light of knowledge within us? So these various models are there. In this model, this Noah, the doer, the essence, Jivatman, we are identified with that. And that has got different levels, where in this gross world, mental world, and the spiritual world, where it is. It can come down to the gross physical world, and when you wake up, we become identified with the body, we begin to function through the senses, and work through the organs of action. When the same mind withdraws a little bit into the mental plane, then these senses shut off, physical activity stops. In the sleep, you might have some dreams, which are images that have been stored from in your subconscious that come randomly in and out in an incoherent way, and we call that dream. This ego might even go deeper into itself, where you have this deep sleep, where you have no idea of what we are, who we are, are we male or female, what's our age, what's our nationality, what's our profession, what things belong to me. I and mine almost totally disappears. It's there in a very, very subtle form, because when we come back to this waking state, then you say, I slept well, it was peaceful. So it did not totally disappear. But it is totally different from the real pure consciousness that is within us. So, coming back to this world movie. In this movie, this three-dimensional physical space, time, cause and effect is the canvas, in which all these images, right from inanimate, like a plant, a stone, a mountain, to living forms, human beings, and gods and goddesses, even in these subtle higher planes. Those are so many forms in there, or in that paintings and pictures. And it's not like things kept in a museum. They're living, they're moving, but they're still in that canvas. It's a motion picture, and we are part of that. Behind every object, there is something what is called the subtle counterpart of it, the idea part of it. Swami Vivekananda beautifully explained it to one of his disciples, that name and form are how the mind, by perceiving name and form, the mind is able to perceive things outside there. The mind is constituted to see names and forms. Names and forms are interrelated to each other. So if I say the word chair, immediately in your mind a chair flashes. If I say a cow, or take somebody's name, immediately in your mind that person's name flashes. Or if you see that person coming, the form, the name immediately pops in your head. So and so has come. So these two are interrelated, of which the form is the grosser and the name is a subtler part. The form could be in the physical world, but the name or the idea of it is in the subtle world. And that's where the mind functions. And we are just like we see various things around us, the table and the chair, and through the five sense organs. In the mental world, we see ideas around, thoughts, and somebody is trying to explain something and you say, I see. You don't see with the eye, you see with the mind. That means I have understood it, I have focused my attention to it, I get it there. So in the mental world, just like in this physical world, there are so many varieties of things. Some of them are good and some are bad. The good ones you want, the bad ones you don't want to take in. In the mental world, also there is a whole range of things at different levels. Here, there are certain things at the ground level, then you go at a height of 10 meters, 20 meters, as you go higher and higher, things will change. So it's a bandwidth, so to say. In the mental plane, there are gross thoughts and there are subtle thoughts. Just like, how do we explain? Like a radio station in this particular space. There are lots of TV channels and radio channels are running there. I require an instrument and I switch it on, and as I tune it to different frequencies, different stations appear, music and all those type of things happen, or some movies are going on the TV, and I change it to another channel, the first one disappears on the same screen, another one appears. But there are so many of them here, in the same space. We see the ones that we are tuned to. So this mind can be trained to tune itself to lower frequencies or higher frequencies. We're talking about mind management techniques. There are in this mental space all types of thoughts. Beautiful thoughts, sublime thoughts, wonderful ideas, uplifting, elevating, making you feel so good about yourself and everything, bring you peace. They are at the higher level of the bandwidth. And you go down, then are all these negative type of thoughts, which are depressing, which are, take away all the vitality, energy out of it, energy sapping, and it makes you feel bad about yourself and everything around. The mind itself is like a receiver and transmitter. Okay. So the mind can project out ideas and it can absorb ideas also. We have to understand this power of the mind. It's beautiful to understand this, understand in this way. So Swami Vivekananda says, this world is a world of influence. Either we are being influenced by outside things, or we are influencing. So I'm trying to influence you. I'm giving you a talk. I've got certain ideas. I'm trying to express them through various words, phrases, sentences, examples, pictures, and all those type of things. And I would like to think that those who are listening are the receivers of those ideas. You might process them out again. So in different ways, we are trying to constantly either be influenced or be the influencer. So people write books, make movies, give talks, speeches, so they are trying to influence. Those who are trying to get influence are the students. They go to the university, the classroom, listen, read books, whatever, they want to take information. They process it. Again, they churn it out. So every mind is a pulsating type of thing. Okay, ideas you're throwing out, ideas you're receiving. Those which are powerful minds have the capacity to really inject a tremendous amount of energy into their thoughts and they throw it out. And a lot of people get influenced by those things. And those who are weaker, they will get influenced by things. Okay, so it's a very nice way to understand how the mind is. And you can see this happening all the time. Now, what we receive and what we transmit depends on at what frequency we are tuned to. We're trying to understand mind management techniques. So, if for any reason our mind comes down to a lower level, then we open ourselves to all those type of low thoughts and ideas that are at that particular frequency, and they'll just rush in and catch you. And they'll drag you down a little bit further. And the worst ones will come, and you go down, 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 like a ping pong ball that's left at the top of the stairs, and it just falls down. And that's why people become a little stressed out and anxiety, they become a little sad, then they become depressed, and you just go down, down into some dark space. After some time, it's very difficult to even catch them, bring them out there, because it has gone to that level. On the other side, the option is that you can keep on ascending higher and higher and higher, and as you go on higher up, then you open yourself to the influence of all those beautiful thoughts that are there. Great people have thought wonderful ideas, saints and sages. And if, when those ideas come into you, you feel so good. And your mind lifts up again, and more come into it. So, we see in the Bhagavad Gita, when Arjuna became a little confused or depressed, the first chapter is called Arjun Vishad Yoga. He becomes despondent, confusion is there. The world that he understood to be real, permanent, and the war that he was so desirous to fight and kill so many people, now seems to be meaningless because these are my relatives and I'll have the sin of killing so many people and I'll be responsible for so many widows and orphans. I don't want this kingdom at the expense of having this guilty conscience of having the blood of so many people on his hand. So he's confused. And that no one has shot an arrow at him right now. Before the war has started, this negative ideas or this confusion has come into him, and now he's shaking and shivering and sweating, and the bows and arrows have slipped out of his hand, and he's on his knees and not knowing what to do, makes all types of excuses to run away. So what happened was that his own mind had become his own enemy and had conquered him. When he surrendered to Sri Krishna and said, "Can you please help me out?" then Sri Krishna brings immediately the idea of the Atman and its immortal nature. Look, he says, the Atman is never born, he doesn't die. The sun in the sky never comes to the earth, is never born. And by destroying this pot, the sun is not affected by it. It is eternal and immortal, and all those ideas about the Atman nature is introduced into his understanding of himself and others. That is the uplifting idea. So that is something very important. Normally people have an idea of themselves in the CV and biodata where the Atman nature doesn't factor. It is there all the time. That's the white light. But they've forgotten the light. They're just watching the movie on the screen. And what they're seeing is not the light. Their attention is on the shadows, things, not what illumines the consciousness behind it. So when this Atman nature is brought in and integrated into it, then with that knowledge that this is a cosmic play, that I am only an instrument in the hands of that cosmic power. And all those Bhagavad Gita then transforms his understanding of himself and how to look at this world, and that which was a terrible war, he is able to discharge that responsibility or duty or play that part without becoming attached to it. That's how Gita teaches this, how to fight our battle of life, apply those knowledge. So we come back to this model where we've got this gross physical world which is constantly changing. Things are born, things remain, things die. Whether it's a mosquito that lives for 7 days or 10 days, or a human being who lives for 70, 80 years, or a solar system that lives for a couple of billion years, or this universe which is 7 or something billion years old. So many universes are coming, so many are going at that time. So this is the physical world. We are struggling to just maintain this body alive, forget about the things outside us. Behind this is a mental world that is more sublime and more beautiful. Wonderful thoughts and ideas are there. When we enter into that and have some good tools by which we can lift ourselves, then wonderful things are seen. And when that mind comes down, then it can become very negative. So Sri Krishna tells Arjuna the mind management technique. He says, Uddharet Atmana Atmanam Na Atmanam Avasadayet Atmanneva Atmano Bandhu Atmanneva Ripuratmana. Lift yourself by yourself. Uddharet Atmana Atmanam. Do not lower yourself. Do not go down. Na Atmanam Avasadayet. If you can lift your mind higher, Atmanneva Atmano Bandhu. You are your own friend. But if you cannot do that, if your mind drags down, Atmanneva Ripuratmana. Ripu means your own enemy. So how do we see, in a simple way, can understand? Sri Krishna says, your mind has gone down to a lower level. In ignorance, you are having all these fearful thoughts. In the darkness, you are seeing ghosts. There are no ghosts are there. Bring in the light of knowledge, In the light of knowledge, things will get revealed to you in their true nature and color, and knowledge is uplifting and freeing, or your fear and everything automatically disappears. So when we are in this darkness of thinking that I am this body, and the body dies, that I'm going to die, whether that's going to be an accident, or that could be some flood or cyclone or bushfire, or it could be a coronavirus that can kill you. But if you understand that whatever will happen to the body, I might save it, I might extend its lifespan to 70, 80, 90, 100 years, but at the end of the day, this will one day go. But there is something inside me, just like Arjuna was taught by Sri Krishna, that it is far much more beautiful, which is eternal, which is immortal, and that doesn't die. And if I can, in this lifetime, realize that, experience that, then here and now, I'm happy to drop this body in this mind and just be where I am. And that is what the whole idea behind spirituality is. That's why the sages say, Amritasya Putra, we are the children of immortality. That is our true nature. As we discuss these ideas and you think about them and you meditate on them, Shravan, Manan, Nididhyasan, at some point, this idea of the immortal, beautiful nature of the self should get hold of us by our throat, so to say, and make us act on that, where we say, we are going to commit a certain amount of our time and energy and make a conscious effort to realize that and experience that in this life itself. Because it's so much more beautiful and glorious than what this world can offer. Why can't I commit a little bit of time to get something which is far much more beautiful than anything the world can give, and which is permanent, and which is full of knowledge, infinite existence, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, and that is most adorable, pure, perfect. That is our true nature. So, through constant listening, contemplating on those teachings, practicing this meditation, keeping spiritual company, these type of thoughts will keep on, samskaras will keep on building in your mind. And it will awaken similar thoughts and ideas or samskaras that have been lodged in your mind from your previous lifetimes. They'll all come forward and rally together. And that will give a impetus and a force, an uplifting force in your say. And you begin to feel that movement. And you feel good about yourself. And you think you're feeling more calm and peaceful and less affected by outside world. Things come, that go, and go. You don't make a big deal about them because you know they are going to go one day away anyway. Let me get that which will not be taken away from me. That type of focus and direction comes. Such a person becomes a seeker of truth. He engages, she engages herself, himself, herself in a spiritual discipline with the goal of not knowing only these things intellectually, but going beyond that knowledge and translating that into a spiritual experience. And that's where japa and meditation and such spiritual disciplines, puja and everything, are various exercises by which we awaken that knowledge or experience our true self. So let's come back to this mental flame. Here we have all these ideas in this atmosphere, so to say. Beautiful ideas can be experienced when the mind is pitched high. When it's in the middle level, appropriate ideas. At a lower level, not so good ideas come. So our constant effort should be to be very alert, not allow ourselves to be infected with negative ideas which can make us sick mentally and bring us down, but give ourselves, inject ourselves or take positive ideas which are healthy, uplifting, that will uplift us. So just like we eat physical food through our mouth and digest them and make them part of our physical body, ideas are food for the mind. Ideas are food for the mind. And just like we are very careful that we eat fresh food, healthy food, not rotten, stale, that will make us sick, likewise, we should have that same sensitivity and alertness about what type of ideas we expose ourselves to, what type of people we associate with. If they're noble, pious, good people, when they discuss wonderful ideas, you'll find you feel uplifted and good. And when you are in the company of not so desirable people, and after some time you feel so bad about yourself, your energy level goes down and everything, they might be whinging and grumbling and complaining about the weather, about the government, about the economic condition and all those type of things, and you stay with them for 15-20 minutes, you find your own mind has come down. Other people are there, they say this is all part of the game, it's coming and going, there's so much more wonderful things out there, let's contemplate on those beautiful things. And when you are in such company, your mind goes up. So mind management technique requires a great degree of alertness about where our mind is pitched and a constant effort to raise it up. In that process, japa and meditation are wonderful spiritual disciplines that you must do, even to hold that position, because if you're not, then something will drag you down. That's why morning and evening, systematically, we must give ourselves that strong dose of mental, spiritual energy that at least remains, lets us or lifts us a little higher. And when you are a little down for any reason, that's when you need to give it a stronger dose, because if you're not very careful, then like that ping pong ball, this mind goes down, down, down. How that happens, that psychology is also beautifully explained in the Bhagavad Gita by Sri Krishna. And he says, and we'll take this up in the next talk, he says, Dhyayate vishayang pungsa sangate shupajayate sangat sanjayate kama kamat krodho vijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti bhramshat buddhinasha buddhinashat pranashyati. By constantly thinking about vishaya, things outside, enjoyments, we develop an attachment to that sangha. And after that attachment comes, we would like to, a desire comes that I should possess it. If there's an obstruction against you fulfilling the desire, then the response in the internal mind is an anger. And when that happens, that turbulent state of the mind takes away the discrimination. And when the discrimination is closed, slowly, step by step, pranashyati. However, mind management technique, if you contemplate on higher things, not things of this material world, then this same mind, by constantly attaching itself or reflecting or contemplating on divine things, lifts itself higher and higher also. And ultimately, the mind is like a crystal. Whatever you put next to it, it takes the color of itself. If you put worldly things next to it, it will absorb the worldly colors to itself. And if you put spiritual subjects, content next to it, it will begin to reflect the spiritual qualities. So we have to have a certain degree of alertness about what type of environment we expose our mind to. If we are very careless, then you'll find that we get infected, so to say. Negative ideas, negative thoughts come in and drag us down. If we are alert, then positive ideas lift us. That's why when devotees would go to Sri Ramakrishna and ask them, what is the way? I want to realize this Atman God. He would say invariably, satsang, spiritual company, holy company, company with people where these spiritual ideas are being discussed. If you don't have access to them, listen to talks, read scriptures, or expose yourself to these spiritual ideas. They will lift you up. Constantly you will build up new samskaras inside you, and you will strengthen the older ones that are there, and slowly they will build up, and the resultant force will be something that will be uplifting, and that is something we have to do. Secondly, he used to say one must go into solitude now and then, ekantavas, whether you can go and stay with yourself, or with all away from family and job and phone and news and radio and TV, and talk, discuss about who am I, where did I come from, where am I going, what's the meaning and purpose of this life. Get those bigger pictures, the bigger story right. I'm a soul that have been born many, many times, in this life I'm here, and if this continues, it will carry on the same story of life and death. What is the whole purpose of this existence? When we think in this way, the bigger picture, all the small trivial things around us will also immediately fade away into insignificant things. And the bigger, most important things about the purpose of life, they will drift in. And that immediately uplifts. We'll take some of these topics from here, exploring this mental space. What is the mind? How it is for different people at different planes. And if we are careful, mindful, we can lift it to another plane. When we are not careful, it can sink down and it will experience those type of thoughts and ideas and emotions depending on the level it is tuned to. By making a conscious effort, we can elevate ourselves. If we're not careful, we can go down, down, down. So that's what depression and all those type of things when the mind has sunk down to a different level, is deprived of its internal energy, and we feel very miserable. And then disasters and catastrophes happen. The power is inside us, and we also have the capacity to heal ourselves and realize our true higher nature. So we will take this idea and take it to the next level in the next talk on next Sunday. And through this, we hope that we will discuss various models, how to understand what the mind is, how it functions, what are the different layers of it. And with this new framework, at some point, we become inspired to master this mind and find that which is beyond the mind, which is our true self. May the Supreme Self that dwells inside us and behind the whole universe inspire us in that spiritual direction. That is our prayer. We'll see you, hope to see you next Sunday again. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.